What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Stock Market Recap and Predictions. It's your boy CB checking in with y'all. I hope you all are having a great weekend and great start to your July. Happy July 4th, happy Independence Day to those who are watching. All right, let's load up the SPY chart and we will load it up to the Monday chart. So going into Monday, we had initially gapped up, pushing all the way back up to 736, 737, because that previous week we were selling off and actually had a sell-off. What seemed to be a misprint going into the close of the day, falling back below our 730 level and closing out the day around 729. We gapped up back above that level going into Monday and opened the day at 737, between 737 and 736, where we then saw a retest of 736. We then bounced off 736, going back up into 740, which was that resistance level from the gap fill zone that we had from 740 to 745. So we rejected that level initially, going back down and failing below our 736 level, pushing even lower all the way down to 732. And we then saw a reversal in the market, in a somewhat strong reversal in the market, where it just pretty much swept the lows and went back up to the upside and reclaiming the highs, and then closing the day out somewhere around 740, pretty much back into that gap fill zone. The trades we took on the day, initially we were looking for calls at the or below of this level, so 735.3 was our initial or below retest level that we were looking to take calls on. We missed that move. It failed that level, so we stopped out of it after seeing the confirmed close happen. Right idea, because it then fell even lower. But that was then retesting our next level of demand, which was 732.5 to 732, where we then saw a little bit of strength kick into the market. And this was the position that I should have held for the remainder of the day, honestly. I was believing that the trend or the pattern and the consolidation was still in effect due to the fact that we had the rejection off 740. So I looked to take longs off the 732 level of demand, but once we reached our orb low, I looked to take shorts after seeing the failure that we had come into the market. Hindsight being 2020, knowing how the market is, they're very manipulative and they will do things that seem very easy flowing to one way and then do the same thing in the other direction. That's essentially what happened. As you see, we had the strong reversal and reclaim back up, going back into our 735 orb low, pushing above that level, going back to 736. And then from there, we just trailed higher and higher and higher for the remainder of the day. But I took my profits once I reached my target back into the orb low and looked to go short. And so that's where I went wrong, because I got stopped out and essentially lost the gains that I made. And that was it. But that's a part of trading. That's the thing you learn on your journey is just when you have a plan and you just stick to your plan. And that's really all you can do at the end of the day. But be mindful of other things that take place in the market, like also being mindful of this zone that we were in for the last 2 weeks, knowing that this zone has its levels that are going to trigger certain reactions, right? So knowing to trade the bottom of the zone or trade the top of the zone. Don't trade in between the zone, because when you trade in between it, that's whenever the chop happens, that's whenever the manipulation happens, that's where they can liquidate your positions. So don't allow them to liquidate your positions. Get the best quality position possible and execute off that. So that was the level we took on Monday. Tuesday, we took calls off of the break above this orb high. So we finally broke above into our gap fill zone going into Tuesday. And so we had very slow price action initially going into the initial day, but we start to see a push higher and essentially a push into the top of the orb, or not the orb, but the gap fill zone. And so once we got a push into the top of the gap fill zone, I looked to take calls off the retest and looked to see a break above the gap fill. And we did get a little bit of a break above it, took some profits, but then it trailed me out after going back lower. It did hold the bottom of this I guess range right here, and then bounced back up and pushed above the gap fill zone, pushing all the way back into 748, where we then saw some rejections and failure going into the post-market session. And then going into Wednesday, I believe we had a little bit more weakness, but we bounced off of our 742 level in Wednesday, and then we reclaimed that level, pushing back above 748, showing more strength once more. And so essentially I took the same trades for Tuesday and Wednesday, that break above our previous level of demand at 744, using that level as a break and hold zone for me to continue holding longs. And so I was able to capture that move on Wednesday and Tuesday. And then Thursday, let's see. Thursday, I didn't really take anything. What did I take Thursday? I don't think I took any spy plays on Thursday. I believe it was more so, I did a one and done day actually on Apple. That's what it was. I caught Apple longs off the open, and it was a very wide, it was a really good move. I should have just held this position. This would have been a really, really good week had I just held the Apple longs. Like, we caught literally the opening move of this candle here and went up immediately, taking profits into that very strong candle in the initial open. I really took most of my profits out of this candle after this. I should have just held one contract and let it run all day, because this thing went crazy, as you guys see. The reason why we took this trade was simply due to the fact that we were just breaking above previous levels of demand and previous structure levels. So we just kept breaking and going higher, breaking and going higher, and we were just holding the base each time. So the risk was defined in this trade here because we were breaking above the previous day highs, or previous day structure low. We were breaking above the previous day structure low, and so that allowed me to hold with conviction and really just catch this move to the upside. So yeah, overall we had a pretty decent week in the market. A few things that I would do differently, and that's one thing I'm working on more now, is just over trading. You know, being more of a disciplined trader, being more of a patient trader, a trader who trades with a lot more conviction and confidence in his plays, and just, you know, lets the play run a lot further. Because these trades that I take, a lot of times they do really, really well, and I only capitalize on a smaller portion of the idea of working out. So locking in on the idea and really allowing the trade to play out a lot bigger is one thing that I'm working on doing. So that's one thing that I would say I need to improve on personally. But overall, like I said, it was a really good week, so I'm not mad at it whatsoever. But yeah, that's one of the things I would say I need to improve on. But without further ado, let's go into next week and talk about what we can expect to see take place next week. Hey, what's going on, y'all? I just want to say thank you all for watching. If you guys are new, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Also, turn on the notification bell. And if you guys want to learn more about how to day trade, I have a free day trading course on my website at www.continuebelief.com. There you'll get all the information and resources needed to help you guys learn more on your journey to day trading. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let's get back to it. All right, you guys, so here we have Google loaded up. And what we got going on Google today is we're looking to see what economic events are happening this week. So as we know, every quarter earnings reports happen. And not only do earnings reports happen, but different economic data reports also happen. So this week, on Monday, July 6th, we have the S&P PMI. It's not too important. The ISM Service Index, that's somewhat important. Trade balance on Tuesday, July 7th. July 8th, we have ADP National Employment Rate. That's important. We also have the wholesale inventories. We have Fed minutes meeting at 2 p.m. That's very important. That is one thing you guys want to note. Consumer credit also on Wednesday, and then Thursday we have initial jobless claims. That's another one that's important. U.S. retail sales, existing home sales. So Thursday and Wednesday will be the days to be mindful of when it comes to the economic reports. Monday too, it's not, too crazy of reports, but Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday will be the days to be mindful of in the market for reporting. I also want to look up earnings this week. So, company's earning calendar, perfect. Let's take a look. 10 earnings. Actually, let me see. Let's go to earnings whisper. Okay, so yeah, not too much. All right, and for earnings this week, these are the companies we have earning. No major important companies earnings report coming out this week, but at the end of the week we do have Delta. So that does tell me that next week, not this week, but the week after next, we will then have more airlines starting to report earnings as well. So that's something to take note of and be mindful of. Other companies that we have right now is just very consumer-based companies and a lot of smaller companies as well. PepsiCo is another one. So Pepsi, they're reporting earnings on Thursday. That's a good one to keep an eye out for, but the rest of them don't look to be too important. So let's move on to the charts and talk about what we can see happening in the market. All right, so here we have the SPY chart loaded, and currently look at the 4-hour time frame. Overall, like I said, this week was a little bit better than last week. We started to see a break out of that zone. We started to see a break out of that zone of 740 and 732. So as you see here on Monday, we got that break above 740. We started to break above it and close above into that gap fill zone right there around 740. And going into Tuesday, we were able to push above this gap fill zone and pretty much reclaim that filled zone, and then also break above our demand level of 744, where we then pushed into 747. And as we approached 747, we slowly slowed down, and then we retested 748, where we then saw initial rejection, but then we bounced going into Wednesday, going back up into 749, where we then saw some more selling pressure come in. And then Tuesday, we had initially opened strong and pushed higher, and then later in the day, we had a very aggressive reversal and weakness push back into the market, going all the way back down to 740 to retest that level, bouncing back off that level and closing the day at 745.2. So pretty much a really good spot, in my opinion, where we ended the week off at. So what can we expect to see take place going into the market next week? What are our levels to watch? So let's go on to the daily time frame real quick. I want to take a look at something. I also want to delete this because it's no longer is needed. We finally filled that gap fill that I mentioned. But currently what I'm looking at, so how I look at this chart currently is that initially we were just, going higher, trending upward, so higher, low, high, low, high, low, low, lower low, lower high. So we started to flip that trend as we pretty much pushed into 760. And we are starting to, reverse a little bit and start to see more pushing to the downside. As you guys see, it's a little bit more aggressive selling here and there. It's a lot more rejections coming in, a lot more sellers on the table than buyers at times of the day. So that is something to be mindful of, but we're also still seeing a lot of strength. So we're in a very, very pretty much range-bound zone between 720 and 760. If we break above 760, we can push higher and go into new all-time highs, which would then indicate that we are still strong. However, if we fail 720, that would indicate that we are weak and we can see more selling pressure come in. So now that we see that overall view and what's going on in the market, let's go back down to the 4-hour time frame to see what's currently going on in the market. So we had that initial sell-off, but then we bounced off of our demand zone of 740 to 737.5 essentially, which was that gap fill zone that we just were holding below. We're still holding above that, right? So going into this week, I believe that as long as we hold above 740, we still have room to run higher. If we can push back above 745, which we already are closing above, if we hold above that level going to Monday, I will look to take a position pushing into 748. If we break above 748, we can push into 752. If we break above 752, we can push back into 757 to 758 or 760, right? If we fail 740, we can push back down, back into our 737 level. From there, if we fail 737, we can push back lower, going down to 732. From 732, if we fail there, we have room to run all the way back down to about 725 or 724.5. And so, yeah, that's where we're currently at. So we're in a very wide range between 720 and 760 Currently, we're sitting closer to the top of that range, but that means that we're closer to resistance for now. Until we break above 760, we're still in a resistance zone. So we have to break above 760 for the confirmation for the uptrend to continue, because right now we are basing at 720, but as long as we're holding below 760, we still have potential to sell off. All right, so be mindful of that going into this next week. And like I said, initially, my thoughts on how we can approach the market this week is, as long as we're holding above 740, we can see potential upside, because I see a double top form as well in the shorter time frame, right? So we got a lower low here and a low here. That wick that we had on Friday, both show indication that there's strength and buying pressure in the market, but we have to break above these highs in order to get continuation higher. So I think that with earnings coming up, with a few different economic data coming out, we can see that push higher going into this month of July. But comment below your thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys are bullish or bearish. Let me know what you guys are looking at. And I hope you all enjoyed this video. It's your boy CB checking in with you all once more. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week, same time, same place. Oh, today's verse of the day. Jude, chapter 1, verse 2. May mercy, peace, and love be granted you in abundance. I hope everything in life that you want, you get out of life. I hope that you receive the love, receive the blessings, receive the abundant results, receive the abundant income, receive the abundant strength and the relationships and the love, because that's what life is about. Life is about listening to the birds. Life is about taking in positive energy and connecting with those that help you grow and become the person that you want to be. And you don't want negative individuals around you who don't have your best interests, who don't want to see you grow, who don't want to give you love, who don't want to give you the energy or pour into you in a way that needs you, that helps you get a good feeling out of life, feeling good about yourself and feeling good about what you're doing. You want good individuals around you. You want a peaceful environment. You don't want an environment that's full of chaos. Now, granted, working and being an entrepreneur and self-employer can have stressful moments, but you don't want it to be stressful. You want life to be worth living. And if it's not worth living, then you got to do some restructuring in your life. So enjoy the life that you have. Make the best of the life that you have. Enjoy the moments that come and go, because they come and go really fast. Time flies, and in the snap of a finger, you'll be 10 years older than you are now. So just enjoy these moments while you have them. Make these good investments, plant those seeds, and win. Win big. Be happy on the journey of winning and on losing too. Because, and this is what I'm going to talk about my podcast as well. I was listening to John Hope Bryant for the Self-Made Forbes interview that they had for the event that they threw. And he said something really powerful. He was just saying how he started homeless, but it was a choice, and how him choosing to be homeless instead of go home and do these things forced him to put himself in a position where he was uncomfortable. And not only was he uncomfortable, he was stressed out. He was, having to work harder. He had to show up and do more. You gotta put yourself in an uncomfortable space, and you gotta be willing to go through the storm, because you can only get the rainbow through the storm. Rainbows don't come till after a storm. So you gotta go through the storm in order to get the rainbow. And so he really put that into perspective, and it was a very well delivered message. And so it's just saying that to say, you gotta be willing to be uncomfortable and make sacrifices and put yourself in spots and spaces where you're not the most familiar with how things work, and you're not the most comfortable with how things operate. So you got to be willing to diversify and change up the strategy and change up the approach and do something different. So a little bit of word of advice. I'm gonna definitely talk more about it in my podcast, but thank you all for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed. Stay safe, stay blessed. Happy Memorial Day, happy Independence Day. I should say, not Memorial Day. That's the difference, I think. Happy Independence Day. Hope you all enjoy this. I'll see you all next week, same time, same place. Also, tune in to our Rich Off Games podcast tomorrow at 7 p.m.